I'm now going to continue my video series on Henry Ward Beecher and his sermons by discussing Matthew chapter 10, verse 39. And I truly believe this would be a very appropriate topic to share with people who are contemplating self-termination or self-harm. Now, losing your life for God is truly honored by God. But I hope you remember the following things. Number one, serving God in life is just as honored as losing your life for God. And number two, looking for an opportunity to lose your life for God is not honored by God. So what does all that mean? It means simply this. God is the author of life. Okay? And even Jesus, sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane, was trying to find some way not to be crucified. So obviously God loves life. Right? So if He loves life that much, why don't we? We should be following His example. So unless God Himself presents you with an opportunity to perish for Him, don't try to terminate your life early. God will not honor it. And you don't want to be standing in front of the throne of God and trying to explain why you self-terminated when He didn't tell you to do that. That's not something you'd want to explain to God. Okay, so how do we properly interpret Matthew chapter 10, verse 39? Okay, first of all, we are to love our parents and our siblings. This is a commandment from God. This is part of the 10 Commandments. This is part of the Decalogue. Okay? Now then, whether it be our parents or our older siblings or even our younger siblings, doesn't make any difference. If somebody in your family asks you to rob a bank or asks you to purchase or sell intoxicating substances or asks you to pummel somebody because of some stupid reason, you are to abandon those people and say, hey, I want nothing more to do with this, and walk away. That's what Jesus was really trying to say. He was trying to say, don't let your parents or your siblings lead you into sin. That's what he's really trying to say. Now it goes on, okay? Now, first of all, remember this. People all across this earth, no matter who they are, people when they start their lives are the most helpless creatures on the face of this earth. As a matter of fact, animals on this earth with the shortest lifespans will start out life being the most mature. We people, with our long lifespans, being longer than any other creature on the face of this earth, we start out life being the least mature. So what is the first thing that develops in a human being? Well, the first thing that develops in a human being is our physical skills. Then our verbal skills finally develop. After that, our analytical skills develop. In other words, our mental smarts. Okay? Then our social skills start to develop. Because after all, when we learn how to talk, we then begin developing our social skills. What's the last thing that develops? Our moral compass. That's true. The last thing to develop in a human being is our moral compass. What a pity. But it's all true. Okay? Now then, think about this for a second. When human beings become more focused on satisfying their own earthly pleasures than on serving God, they lose their place in eternity. That's a more appropriate definition of Matthew chapter 10, verse 39. What it means is that if you sacrifice your moral compass for earthly pleasures, that's what can put you in eternal doom. Think about this. People will often sacrifice their reputations for fleeting prosperity. They yearn for prosperity so much that they'll sacrifice truth and honor and reputation to get fleeting wealth. Wealth is there for a period of time and then it disappears. Sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't. Ask Job. Yes, Job in the Bible is he's a perfect illustration of how fast prosperity can leave you and how prosperity can come back. But it's your relationship to God that actually determines whether prosperity ever comes back to you or not. If you have a good reputation, even if prosperity leaves you for a time, it will return. If not, it may never come back. Now think about this for a second. Now, there are a lot of people out there, if you told them to build a sandcastle, they would just flip something together in about 10 to 15 minutes and say, well, there it is. Well, yeah, there it is. How much pleasure did that sandcastle give to you? Probably not very much, and not for very long either. But there are other people, when you tell them to build a sandcastle, they'll start their sandcastle before the break of dawn. And they'll just keep building and building and building and make this monolithic sandcastle that's absolutely gorgeous. And when they're all done with it, they marvel at their creation, and it gives them a long-lasting pleasure. Because let me tell you something. When the waves of the ocean start breaking onto the shore, a larger sandcastle will last longer than a little tiny one. Now then, it is true that if somebody sees a small sandcastle, they'll look at it and they'll admire it for a couple of seconds. Ooh, look at that. That's very nice. But if you take the time and you build a much larger sandcastle and you make it look really, really good, it will be more admired than the small one, and furthermore, more people will notice it because it's just simply bigger and it looks nicer. Something that's bigger and looks nicer is going to be more noticed than just a little tiny nothing of a sandcastle. That's the truth. See what I mean? So if you want true admiration, do something great for God. Because God will not only notice it, but other people will as well. So, the real point of all this is, don't do something quick for God. Do something spectacular for God. Take the resources that God gives to you and do something spectacular with it. Not only will God honor it truly, but other people will honor it too. Lots of other people. And the bigger it is, the more people that will honor it. You won't even have to ask them. They will honor it. They can't help but honor it. I mean, think about it. Look at all the spectacular things that Moses did with the rod of God. Talk about a man that is still honored to this very day. I can name others in the Bible. Abraham, Mary and Joseph, David, Solomon. All these people did spectacular things for God, and when that happened, they were honored for all eternity. Even St. Paul was honored for all eternity because he sacrificed his livelihood, which was being a Pharisee, for God. And he wrote most of the New Testament. And we still learn from Paul's teachings to this very day. God honored that. That's the correct definition and interpretation of Matthew chapter 10, verse 39. It's not a sacrifice of your physical life that God's looking for. It's a sacrifice of your livelihood. When you sacrifice your livelihood for God, God honors that. And that's the correct definition. And that's the correct interpretation. All right. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.